Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Joanne Shearer Parkin, and I want to welcome all of you to my webinar tonight. I'm really excited to see so many of you that have joined me tonight for my webinar, which I'm titling Nrf2 Activation and the Brain. Just a little bit about myself. I am a registered dietitian and a master's level nutritionist. I've had really kind of a fabulous career. I tell people I have womb to tomb experience. In other words, I've just really kind of had just a variety of different jobs in my career, and I've just kind of loved my profession. It's really been great. And it was about 8 years ago that a cardiologist by the name of Dr. Mark Gordon introduced me to this subject and this topic of Nrf2 activation. And he is not only a cardiologist, he's board certified in anti-aging medicine. And so this is a really bright, smart doctor who researched and then studied and learned everything he knew about Nrf2 activation, and then he taught me. I don't necessarily want to say that I'm really an expert on this subject. I do have a medical doctor in my network that's up in Canada by the name of Dr. Sveta Silverman, who's really smart and really an expert at this, but I really do know pretty much the basics. I've been reading a ton of research articles about Nrf2 activation. So what I'm going to share tonight with you is what I have learned over the last 8 years about Nrf2, and especially about as far as your brain and keeping your brain healthy with Nrf2 activation. So let's get started with the webinar. First of all, what are you going to learn tonight? You're going to learn that neurological brain disorders have many common biochemical imbalances, and the four that we're going to talk about particularly are oxidative stress, mitochondrial dysfunction, glutathione deficiency, and brain inflammation. And you're going to learn how Nrf2 activation can treat all of these common imbalances. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about how you can choose specific lifestyle approaches to increase Nrf2. We'll be talking about the Mediterranean diet, fitness, fasting, and specific supplements. Okay, so let's get started. Let's talk specifically about the biochemical imbalances we see in neurological disorders. And when I was doing my reading, and I'm not talking about neurological disorders, I'm talking about everything from like multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's disease, ALS, Huntington's, there's others out there like Huntington disease, and not only just the neurological brain disorders, but even when I talk about even migraine headaches often have some of these common same imbalances, even depression and anxiety as well. So there's just some commonalities among all of the brain disorders, even autism, as I said before. But we have several guests on this webinar tonight that have a diagnosis of Parkinson's, and so I thought I'd just specifically kind of separate out Parkinson's when we're talking about the biochemical imbalances, because there's some that are really unique specifically to Parkinson's, the death of dopamine neurons. Really, there's genetics plays a partial role. There's somewhat of a role of genetics. Protein accumulation in the brain. We know that pesticides and herbicides contribute as well, and is thought to have a cause of Parkinson's, particularly the fungicide, herbicide Agent Orange. So those are the ones specific to Parkinson's. But over here on the right, as you can see in that column, that there are some common factors and biological imbalances common to all neurological disorders, and we're talk about those: the oxidative stress, mitochondrial dysfunction, nerve inflammation, glutathione deficiency, gut dysbiosis, which is an imbalance of good and bacteria in the gut. This is really an interesting one that's just recently been recognized, that the gut plays a role in how well your brain functions and in different brain disorders. And it's called the gut-brain axis. So a healthy gut is important for keeping your brain functioning. Isn't that a novel idea? Wow. And then, of course, another common factor is an insufficient Nrf2 activation. What you're going to learn is that if you can boost up that Nrf2 activation, you can actually treat the first four on that list. So let's get started talking about exactly what is Nrf2, Nrf2. Now that stands for nuclear erythroid like factor 2. So now you know why we just call it Nrf2 or Nrf2, right? And so it makes it a lot simpler, right? So how in the world, how do I explain what this is? Because it's very complicated cell biology. So I hope I can really get it down into something that you can all, kind of take home and put in your hat, right? So what is Nrf2? Nrf2, as you can see by this slide, and if you look at this human cell right here, you see that red dot right there? That's Nrf2. It's a protein that hangs out in the cytoplasm of your cell. Most of their cell is made up of this cytoplasm. And so this Nrf2 protein it's chained up and it's hooked up to another protein called HEAP1. And it just kind of hangs out there until it's activated. And so what happens is that usually what it is, it's mostly like bioactive nutrients, biochemical and phytonutrients in your food and in herbals and spices. What they do is those nutrients will attach to receptors on your cell. In this case, we're showing an herbal called protanum. It's attached here. What that does then is it activates this Nrf2 protein. So what happens is that when that attaches there, it's kind of like when it gets activated, it's like the old bolt cutter comes along. I always think about that. My dad, when I was growing up on the farm, they had that bolt cutter, have you ever seen that big old bolt cutter? That's what I think of. When Nrf2 gets activated, it gets unchained, right? So then to really do the work, for this protein to really work, it's got to get out of the cytoplasm. It's got to get down in here to the nucleus of your cell. And what it does, that attaches to a very specific region on your DNA. And when it attaches there, it downregulates bad genes. It turns off these bad genes that promote inflammation, the bad genes that promote scar tissue. So it turns off these genes. And then what it does is then when it attaches there, it then upregulates and turns on your good survival genes. And one of the functions of those good survival genes is to produce multiple copies of these very potent antioxidant enzymes. Now, I didn't know that our cells generated and created and made antioxidant enzymes until about 20 years ago. And what I learned, and which is still true today, is that antioxidant enzymes like glutathione, superoxide dismutase, catalase. Now, you don't have to remember any of those, but just so you know that these antioxidants that our cells make are really 1,000,000 times more potent and powerful than the antioxidants we might get in food or in like a vitamin C tablet. And so what Nrf2 does is it activates our cells to literally make our own medicines. That's what it does. What are those medicines? These powerful, potent antioxidant enzymes. By the way, activating this Nrf2 protein, it modifies in a very positive way over 600 genes. So it's not just a tweak of who you are. It really kind of readjusts a lot of things, right? So what are the researchers saying about Nrf2? Like I said, I just learned about it in 2011, 2012. Actually, the research started coming out about, I would say about 1995. So really, that's pretty new in terms of research. There's probably now about 6,000 studies on Nrf2 activation. But this research from the Texas Health Sciences Center, what they say, and this is what they talk about, how they describe Nrf2, they say it's a signaling pathway, and it's emerging as a critical principal factor in protection against cancer, neurodegeneration, okay, that's that nerve degeneration that we're talking about tonight, and inflammation. And we propose that Nrf2 plays a pivotal role in longevity and the determination of the health span. And that was just 2010. Now let's fast forward. This is 2015. And these researchers are from Washington State University in Oregon. And what do they say about Nrf2? That it's a master regulator of detoxification. In fact, in this research article, they say that the primary function of Nrf2 is actually detoxification. Also, antioxidant which is Nrf2 has been described as the master regulator of the antioxidant response. Remember, that's that generating those medicines within your cells, right? It also anti-inflammatory and cytoprotective or cell protective mechanisms. And what they say is that Nrf2 may become the most extraordinary therapeutic, most extraordinary preventative breakthrough in the history of medicine. So aren't you glad you're learning about this tonight? If you've not heard about Nrf2, I'm sure you are glad you're learning this. Basically, this is what somebody else described it in a very simple way, is that Nrf2 is the most important anti-aging pathway in the human body. And basically, if you have more Nrf2, slower aging. Now, I know that we have some young people on this webinar tonight, and I know they're thinking, hey, that aging thing, I don't have to worry about that. Well, guess what? If you're over 20, you're aging, because after age 20, the production of those powerful antioxidant enzymes starts to fall off and drop off, and you start aging. So we all are just we're aging just while we're sitting here listening to this webinar. But maybe after the webinar tonight, you'll know how to activate your new Nrf2, and you're going to slow it down. Okay, so when I've done some research and I've read a lot of these studies about Nrf2 activation, I gleaned about a dozen delightful benefits of Nrf2, and that's what I call it, a dozen delightful benefits. Now, of course, I'm not going to be able to, in the time that we have in this webinar, to talk about all 12, but I am going to talk about, again, about the 4 or 5 that are really, really particularly, the benefits that are particularly associated with brain health and brain protection. So let's talk first about oxidative stress, because Nrf2 activation lowers oxidative stress. Uh-oh, I got a little problem here with okay, I better what's going on? I might have to hold it there. Okay, so oxidative stress is the rusting of our bodies from the inside out. What it really, another word for is, it's really called free radical damage. I'm sure some of you may have heard that term before. You may be more familiar with that than oxidative stress. Free radical damage. Free radicals are toxic molecules that some of them are produced within our cells, but we do get a boatload of those free radicals from our environment. And if I can get my slide back, you can see some of the sources of those free radicals. Of course, air pollution from herbicides, pesticides, chemicals in our foods, car batteries, cell phones, UV rays. All of those are sources of oxidative stress. Also, these free radicals, another name for them, what I call them, are buzz bombs, because they literally destroy everything that they bump into in your body, every cell structure. Like your cholesterol, your lipid, all of that, lipids, all of that gets damaged by these free radicals. And now scientists have now associated about 200 chronic diseases of aging with oxidative stress. Tonight, we're particularly going to be focusing in on brain health, but look at all the other organs in your body that are affected by oxidative stress. So when we're talking about protecting your brain, you're also going to be also protecting other organs in your body, all of your cells in your body as well. So oxidative stress also leads to inflammation. So oxidative stress, what it does is when it damages a particle or something in your body, it damages a cell or cell structure, that activates your immune system. And then you get inflammation. Now, the thing is that you have a ton of silent inflammation. Most of the inflammation that's really dangerous and damaging is this inflammation that you cannot sense or feel. And so what Nrf2 does is it actually turns off the genes and downregulates the genes that promote inflammation. Also, when you bring oxidative stress down and lower oxidative stress by Nrf2 activation, that also helps to decrease the inflammatory response. So you get a double benefit there. Oxidative stress also causes a loss of the mitochondria. Now, why are the mitochondria important? Well, the mitochondria in your cells are our energy factories. This is where 95% of your energy is created. One of the things that happens is as the oxidative stress continues to destroy the mitochondria, eventually that leads to cell death. Okay, so what we're finding is that a lot of those same diseases, so if we were to go back here and put loss of the mitochondria, we also call it mitochondrial dysfunction, if we put that at the middle of the, if we put that at the center here, okay, so mitochondrial dysfunction, you would see that that also is a factor in many of these same diseases of aging that we're talking about that are also associated with the oxidative stress. Another factor in biochemical imbalance that's common in all brain disorders is a decline and a loss of glutathione. So what is glutathione? Glutathione is called the mother of all antioxidants, probably the most important antioxidant in the human body, definitely the most important antioxidant for your brain. Okay, so if you go to a website, it's called pubmed.gov, where all the research is based. That's all a database of all the research. If you go there and kind of read and type in glutathione, you're going to get almost 100,000 research articles. And this is interesting. I was reading some studies. I found one study that said that the magnitude of deficiency of glutathione parallels the severity of disability from Parkinson's disease. Another research study I read said that a reduction of glutathione correlates with a decline in the cognitive function of Alzheimer's disease. So that just gives you an example of how important glutathione is for your brain. Just a little bit more about glutathione. Like I said, it's the most potent antioxidant in your body. It's absolutely essential for phase 2 detoxification in your liver. You need that to detoxify, especially chemicals, and get them flushed out of your system. Glutathione neutralizes free radicals. Oh, this is important here. Removes heavy metals. Heavy metals are neurotoxins. You probably all know that. Heavy metals are also been associated with causing neurological dysfunction in the brain. Protects against tumor formation and supports the immune system. Pretty important antioxidant. Again, this is one of those medicines that our cells makes, right? And Nrf2 activates our cells to make glutathione. One thing to understand about glutathione, it cannot be taken in a pill form. You either have to take it by IV infusion or get your cells activated through Nrf2 to make the glutathione. Okay, so let's shift gears now. So I've talked a little bit about Nrf2 activation, especially with brain health and some of the important functions of Nrf2 activation. So I think all of you are probably wondering, wow, what can I do to get more of that Nrf2, right? I want more. You know, I want to get that little protein really humming in my body. How do I do that? Well, I'm going to be giving you some very specific lifestyle and diet and supplement recommendations on how you can do that. And when it comes to the diet, the Mediterranean diet is your best Nrf2 activator diet. That was from that research study from Washington State University out of Oregon, where they also were looking at different lifestyle approaches to activating Nrf2. I have long been a proponent of the Mediterranean diet. When I was started as a head dietitian at the Everhart Hospital in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, I actually brought the Mediterranean diet into the hospital. I believe I was the first dietitian in the United States to do that. And one of the reasons why I chose the Mediterranean diet, because science was showing that it was the most powerful and potent diet at lowering the mortality and the death rate from cardiovascular disease. And the reason why it was so potent and powerful is because it was the diet most effective at lowering oxidative stress. So I thought, well, that's a no-brainer. I need to get all of my patients in the hospital. I need them to go home and kind of consume and eat this Mediterranean diet. So this was what we taught our patients when I was there. And what is it about the Mediterranean diet? How does it activate Nrf2? It is what the scientists are thinking is that it's the synergism of foods and nutrients in the diet. That means that the the foods kind of complement and boost and work together, and so that when you just that the sum of the whole is like 100 times greater than the sum of the individual nutrients. So it's interesting. I was talking to a rep from a company that's making has something called broccoli sprouts, and they're really promoting broccoli sprouts because there's an ingredient in broccoli sprouts that's a Nrf2 activator. They said that when they combine broccoli sprouts with tomatoes, that causes a synergy and they get a much greater increase of Nrf2 activation. Mm-hmm. Well, what about when you combine tomatoes and all the fresh herbs and the parsley with the olive oil and the fish oils and the whole grains and then the little red wine with your meal? See, it's just all of those foods together that give you that boost and that increase in your Nrf2. Some other things you can do to activate Nrf2 is exercise. Moderate exercise helps to give you a little boost in Nrf2 and lower your oxidative stress. However, if you over-exercise, like marathon runners, for example, it's actually the opposite. That really tremendously increases their oxidative stress and can actually start depleting their Nrf2. Intermittent fasting, by the way, and they're looking at fasting and particularly intermittent fasting, and that there's many benefits, and they've looked at how fasting can help with, like, improving your insulin resistance, can actually lower some of that oxidative stress and inflammation. And now they're finding that one of the reasons why fasting works is because it activates Nrf2. Interesting, right? So I'm not going to get into fasting. There's all kinds now of different approaches to fasting. There's time-restricted fasting. There's where you just fast a certain hours, like 8 hours a day. Intermittent fasting, where you just maybe fast 1 day a week. And then there are people that fast like up to 2 to 3 days at a time in 1 month. So there's all right now coming out all different types of options for fasting. As far as when we talk about Nrf2 and we get into talking about supplements, when I researched this, in fact, I prepared this slide now. It's probably maybe 3 or 4 years old, and I haven't gone and looked and see how many more Nrf2 activator supplements are out there. I just did a little research on the internet to see about Nrf2 activator supplements, and so this was interesting that I found. Well, there's I saw these 6, right? And what I found was when I went to PubMed.gov, and so you can do this yourself. You go to PubMed.gov and you type in the brand name of all of these Nrf2 activators, right? This one's by Zymogen. For example, this one is OGF, whatever the brand name of that one is. So you type them, and that's what I did. What I found is that not one of these supplements had any research to support them. The only supplement that I found that has research to support it as a Nrf2 activator, that is the ingredients, that is the branded supplement, the pill itself, and that was Protandim Nrf2. And of course, I'm a distributor with LifeAntage, and this is a product that I have been introducing to people now for about 8 years. And this is why. First of all, because Protandim Nrf2 has the science to support it. Let me see, I think I got my slides out already here, this slide. This is really what really captured my interest. When Dr. Mark Gordon introduced this to me, at the time that I saw this, there were 7 studies. Now this says 26. I believe there's 28 studies on Protandim Nrf2. So it really has the science to support it, to really validate that it does exactly what it says it does, and so that you can have confidence, at least I certainly have confidence with this little yellow pill, that it will do what the research and science says that it does. And what is it that it does? It lowers oxidative stress by 40% in 30 days. It actually, what it does, because of that Nrf2 activator, remember I was talking about that. What does Nrf2 activation do? It helps your body cells make antioxidants, which is a more potent and powerful way to deal with those free radicals than taking an antioxidant. And Dr. Joe McCord, who is the formulator and the scientist behind this product, says that Protandim completely eliminates the increase in oxidative stress that comes with aging, because increasing oxidative stress is really what causes us to age, or at least that's one of the major causes of why we age. So we talked about the various studies on that previous slide, and I think probably the most important study on Protandim Nrf2 was the study published by the National Institutes of Health. It was funded by NIH, and it was conducted by an institute of NIH called the National Institute on Aging. And what they found is that Protandim Nrf2 is the only dietary supplement that is scientifically validated to extend lifespan and slow down the aging process. Now, they used mice in this longevity study for probably a pretty obvious reason that you can't really do these studies with humans, right? And what's interesting in this study is that NIH and National Institute on Aging, they've been conducting these studies for about 20 years. So they've been selecting drugs and supplements over these 20 years, and they have been studying them to see if they extend lifespan. Well, interestingly, the individual nutrients that they studied did not increase lifespan. So they discovered this was resveratrol, which is that antioxidant in red wine, curcumin or turmeric, which is actually an ingredient in Protandim Nrf2. So is green tea extract, fish oils, MCT. So none of these individually extended lifespans. So you see, it's really the potency and the power of the 5 ingredients in Protandim Nrf2 that create a synergy. See, they create the synergy. And so then just individually, these nutrients in herbals just only minimally increase those antioxidant enzymes. So they minimally, you don't get much of that like glutathione. But when you put the 5 together, you get an 1800% increase. So pretty powerful little pill. Now, we talked about glutathione and how important it is for your brain health. Well, Protandim Nrf2 increases glutathione by 200 to 300% in pancreatic cells and up to 400% in brain cells. Remember, that is the most important antioxidant for your brain, and you're going to get up to 400% increase with that pill. Protandim Nrf2 has a companion product that works together with it. It's called Protandim Nrf1. And what does that do? Remember we talked about the mitochondria and how the oxidative stress destroys the mitochondria? Well, what the Nrf1 protein does, it helps to grow the mitochondria back. It's called the mitochondrial biogenesis. So you see how these work together then. The Nrf2 Protandim lowers the oxidative stress, but then the Protandim Nrf1 helps to get those mitochondria back so that you can get your energy factors up and humming again, right? Up and running and doing what they're supposed to. Now, there are some other beneficial supplements for brain health. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on these. So if you're a guest on the webinar tonight, I'd like to get back to the person who invited you, and you want to learn more about these supplements. DHA from fish oil is extremely potent and powerful for your brain and your brain health. They're finding a direct correlation and relationship, for example, of increase of Alzheimer's disease in people with very low levels of DHA. It's a specific fatty acid in fish oil. So you want to make sure that you have a fish oil product that's high in DHA. The Omega Plus product from Life Vantage is one of those. Also, your gut health would also be important for your brain health. How about that? So you want to make sure that you have that proper balance of the good and bad bacteria in your gut. Life Vantage has an amazing, wonderful probiotic called ProBio with Wellmune, which Wellmune is a prebiotic, which is food for the good, healthy gut bacteria. Also has a technology built into the pill so that the good, healthy bacteria will survive the stomach acid and get right down into your large intestine where you really need those good gut guys to do the work that you need to protect you and to give you that good brain health protection. Another supplement would be MCT oil and coconut oil. MCT oil from coconut oil, about 50% of the fatty acids in coconut oil are called medium chain triglycerides. And oh my goodness, if there isn't a wealth of research on MCT oil and what it can do for brain health. I have my own personal story about that. 5 years ago, I had a shingles infection. I didn't know I had a shingles infection, the shingles virus. My only symptom was I had neuropathy in my hands and feet. I went to see a neurologist, and he was the one who diagnosed me with neuropathy related to the shingles virus. And one of the things that he recommended, and what he recommends for all of his patients with any kind of neurological disorder, is he recommends 2 tablespoons of coconut oil a day. Okay, so you can also buy MCT oil in a jar and take it as a supplement. But so that's what I did. Now, thankfully, I healed up within about 3 months. The neuropathy, it healed up, and I have never had a problem since. But I'm still taking my coconut oil every day, 1 to 2 tablespoons every day. Now, I'm just going to briefly, I know this is talking about nutrition, lifestyle, supplements, all the things you can do to activate Nrf2, but I just want to point this out to you before I end, and that is that there are some Nrf2 prescription drugs. I talked previously about Protandim Nrf2. Protandim Nrf2 was a breakthrough in this category of Nrf2 activators. Protandim Nrf2 was the first Nrf2 activator on the market. So there's this whole new category of drugs and supplements called Nrf2 activators, right? So Protandim came to market in about 2003 to 2005. Well, in 2013, the first Nrf2 activator drug was marketed, and it's Tecfidera for multiple sclerosis. And then 2 to 3 years later, then Radicava for ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease, is now in the market. So are you kind of getting the idea about how important Nrf2 activation is for the brain? Do you see that drug companies are also spending billions, I'm not kidding, just billions of dollars studying Nrf2 prescription drugs? Another thing too is that Michael J. Fox Foundation is studying Nrf2 and looking at various Nrf2 drugs and also at natural botanicals as well for activating Nrf2. So for those of you that are on the webinar tonight that may have a Parkinson's diagnosis, isn't that good to know that there's something that the Nrf2 is out there, there's something that you can do for it and do for it now in your lifestyle and what the supplements that are available. Okay, so I think I'm looking at my time here. Yep, I've said I was going to try to keep this at 35 minutes. I'm at 34, so it's time to wrap this up. So what did we learn tonight? We learned that Parkinson's disease and other neurological diseases have many common risk factors, right? There's a commonality among all of these. Oxidative stress, mitochondrial dysfunction. We learned about glutathione, right? Probably something new for some of you. And glutathione deficiency and nerve inflammation in the brain. We learned how Nrf2 activation addresses all of these underlying risk factors and biochemical imbalances, right? And then we learned, what did we learn? How can you get more Nrf2? Mediterranean diet, moderate exercise, fasting, and Protandim Nrf2 all play a role in increasing your Nrf2 activation. And so with that, I'm going to end my webinar, and I'm going to stop the recording. And I will, let me try this again, stop the recording, and then